Here we are with Cherry.
Hi.
So you are an author.
I am an author. I live in Seattle, and I write action, adventure, romance. Running, chasing, shooting, wild monkey sex is basically what I write. So now see, you've read them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it about 20 years. I have approximately 60 books. And I love action adventure, and I love writing jungle and desert. But I have been to neither because I would have to have really bad shoes and my hair would get frizzy. So I like to write about snakes and scorpions. I don't like those things either. I don't like the bug part of what I write. So I write action adventure, running, chasing, lots of shooting, lots of sex, and they're really fun. I mean, they're really exciting books, so I think. So I love what I do. I love what I do. I read romance now exclusively. I adore romance. Every type, every genre of romance I read. So, and I love it.
Awesome. Well, this is a great place to see all of this.
Yeah, so I love this convention. I come every year. I've been coming for 20 years. And I come the first 2 days before the conference even opens. I do a 2-day masterclass. So I teach students how to plot their books and how to write great dialogue. And then all week I help my students plot the book that they worked on in my class. It's pretty exciting. I love it. I just love it.
Okay, we are with Meg Tilly, and you have started your career as an author.
Right. I've been writing since I was turned 30, but I did a couple literary novels, and then I did a few young adult. I was asked to do that, and then I did a few middle grade because I love that age. And then it was not until now, just like last year, where I thought, everybody else says write what you love. I read romance. Like I've read romance ever since I had small children, and the world was so scary and the news was so bad, and I just didn't want to read something that didn't end well. I'd read all the literary stuff, and every once in a while I still do, but I wanted something which would make my heart happy. And so I picked up a Jane Ann Krentz book, which was called The Mistress. It was so much fun, and I loved it. And so I just started reading romance whenever I had a chance. And then when I hit this age, I don't need to tell you, okay, I'm 58. When I hit 57, I was like, I'm going to write something that I love. And so I wrote a romance, but I didn't know if anybody would want it, and then Berkeley picked it up, and I've got the most amazing editors, Cindy Huang and Carrie Donovan, and I'm just really excited. And so they're doing the 3-book series for Solace Island.
So what inspired you to take that leap into this?
Yeah.
How can,
right.
What words
I was
could
scared.
you give?
I've tried over the years. I've been like, because I love romance. So I thought, I'm going to try. And then I thought, I can't. The writers are so wonderful. And there's so many beautiful writers who I admire so much. I thought I couldn't write the other stuff, which is funny because most people want to write the other stuff, like literary. But for me, this was a golden chalice, And then my friend came to visit, and he had written something and done it through Amazon, and he really wanted me to do it as well. And I'd be like, yeah, but I always have traditionally published, and I like that. But then this one time he came to visit, and his brother had died, and he was really sad, and he seemed smaller, like he's a bit older than I am, and I was worried that I'd said yeah, but I never planned on it, and I was worried, what if he dies? And here I have said yeah, kind of implying a promise, but not fulfilling it. And so I said to him, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But I didn't want to burn my traditional publishing bridges, so I said I'm going to do it under a fake name. And then I came up with the name Sarah Flynn. But then Berkeley said, no, you've got to do it under Meg Tilly. And Jane Ann Krentz, who's become kind of a mentor for me, who writes also she also writes under Amanda Quick, Jane Ann Krentz, and Jane Castle. She has 3 pen names. She advised me as well to do it under Meg Tilly so that my readers, my fans could find it. So it's Solace Island, Meg Tilly, it's romantic suspense. There are a few dead bodies that show up, but there's a happy ever after, and it's fun. There's like humor, and it's just, I love it.
So will you be here tomorrow for the book signing?
I will be here, but I'm at the Berkeley Talk Wordy to Me one. I'm not in the book signing because my book doesn't go on sale till November 9th. I mean, till November 6th.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you come to the Talk Wordy to Me Berkeley thing, then you can get a free ARC, and I'll sign it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here with Sondra Kitt. And what kind of books do you write?
Well, I started out writing and publishing in category, but to be honest, I never considered myself a category writer, which is just basically straight romance. My books are very complex. I was breaking all the rules when I first began writing. I wrote from multiple points of view. I had subplots. I was also one of the first writers back in the day who introduced diverse characters. They weren't always African American, sometimes they were Hispanic. And so I've been around for a while. I've actually began writing the same year that Romantic Times began publishing. So Catherine Falk and I go back a very, very long way. She's been very, very supportive to me in my career. I was the first African American to ever publish with Harlequin, and who did their first black romance, which is Adam and Eva, which oddly enough, despite the objections from behind the scenes and the powers that be, because it had black characters, it went on to become one of their classics and was reissued a number of times, including being published in Italy. So I'm very proud of that. In the mid-1990s, I also launched the first romance line that was called Multicultural from Kensington, called Arabesque. So that was another first for me. And I also wrote the first interracial love story, which was published in 1995, called The Color of Love, which is just continually to be a huge, huge success. After more than 20 years, it's still selling. So I'm very, very pleased about that. So I tend to write stories that are very contemporary. I don't look behind into history very much. I'm really much more concerned and interested as a reader as well in what's happening in the society today, but also looking very much ahead toward the future. So besides the obvious romance in a lot of my books, I'm also touching on a lot of social issues, the way America is changing. How do we define America? American, how do we define family with there's being so many blended families? So my stories are much more challenging, a little bit more complex, which is what I enjoy. It's what makes the writing very interesting for me.
So if you had one piece of advice for somebody just starting to write or thinking about it, what would that be?
Just write. That is the first single responsibility that you have. I've taught writing. I was an adjunct for 15 years, and the first thing I tell my students, or anyone, people I meet here at a conference, is that don't think about getting published. You have nothing to sell yet. You have to concentrate on writing the story, and you have to concentrate on writing the very, very best story that you can. Start there. Come to the conferences to learn some skills, dialogue, creating characters, talk to other writers, talk to people from the industry. There are a lot of agents here. There are editors here. Ask questions, because people you will find are very, very generous with their information. I always like to think that writers are sort of training and working on the next generation of writers. And you're the next generation. So talk to everyone. Ask a lot of questions.
Awesome. Okay, we are here with Damon Suede.
Hi guys.
And you've been writing for how long?
I've been writing for actually over 30 years, but I've been writing romance for about, my first book was written in 2010 and came out in 2011, but I was a screenwriter and a television writer and a playwright for 25 plus years. So I'm sort of a career writer, and I fell into romance in a bit of an odd way.
So what kind of romance do you write?
I write gay romance in every genre. So I've written paranormal, I've written contemporary, I've written romantic suspense, I've written inspirational, but all of them are homoerotic. Because I came from Hollywood, I was really writing stories that I wanted to tell that were hopeful and interesting and kind of messed with gender and other things, because I discovered there was a huge market for it. Mm-hmm. There's this massive group of people that do not want to read insert tab A into slot B in sort of cookie cutter relationships.
So when you started doing that, what kind of a response did you get?
Oh, it was a blowout. I came to romance on Adair. I've been screenwriting for over 2 decades, and my husband's a forensic investigator. He was on a case working on a dead body, autopsy, and I was at home bored and miserable, and a friend of mine was working on an erotic romance and said, I'm having a hard time with the plot. You do a lot of plot work for Hollywood. Will you help me? And so she called and we sort of were beating out the plot, and she said, if you don't write a romance novel, you're the laziest jerk in the world. And I said, I've never written a novel. My mom always wanted me to, and I never had. And she said, I dare you, which is always the worst thing to say to me because I immediately respond with defiance. So I started writing a novel. I wrote it in 6 weeks. My first book was written in 6 weeks. I sold it in 2 days, and it was #1 for 6 months. And it made so much money and brought this huge fan base. I called my agent and I said, I'm never working for the Weinstein brothers again. I'm never working for Tribeca again. I want to write romance. It's such a loving community. I mean, I don't know how many people you've talked to, but it's just such a loving, warm, positive community. And in film, every writer is kind of angling for your job. And in romance, everyone wants to help everyone. It's an entire genre predicated on the idea that relationships are powerful and life is hopeful and possible. And so it's been such a liberating experience as a writer to tell stories that I love to a community that loves stories. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So one piece of advice for somebody who's thinking about getting into writing or just starting?
The one piece of advice I would give you is that the most important thing you can have is butt glue, and by that I mean put your butt in the chair and glue it down. Because if you sit down and you actually put words on the page, if you tell the stories you need to tell, you will get better. The worst thing you could do as a baby writer is talk about writing and never actually type anything. But whenever people tell me they can't write, I say, oh yes you can, you have fingers, you have a voice, you can make words come out on paper. And so I say butt glue. Sit down, tell the story that's in your heart and make it something exceptional, and people will read it, buy it, and love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're with Regina DeSalvo. And what genre do you write?
I write contemporary romance with mystery, and I'm new to historical westerns. And my historical westerns are set right here in Nevada. Did I say it right? Nevada?
Yes, Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada.
You said you were in Virginia City and you got inspired.
I did. I was a trip here for a book convention, and me and another author, her name is Heather Graham. She's amazing. If you haven't read her, highly recommend her. We were walking the cemetery in Virginia City and reading the tombstones, and I just was inspired, and that's where my historical westerns come from. And they're partially set in Virginia City and then a fictitious town I call Two Moon Junction, which is kind of up in the high country, like Mount Rose and near Lake Tahoe, but in that area. Yeah, that's
so
in my
kind of
mind.
where the Ponderosa Ranch was.
Kind of, yeah. You know, I actually didn't see it. It was closed, so I didn't get to go
it's
there.
Been
but
closed for a while.
But yeah, I watched that show when I was growing up. I cut my teeth on on the Ponderosa. Yeah.
So what inspired you to start writing?
I've always written. It's one of those things that, I think you have it in your soul. And I became a journalist because I didn't know you could make a living at writing books. I had no idea. And even that is like a starving artist living when you're starting and so forth. So I became a journalist to write stories and to tell stories. I started out as a sportscaster because I have a fun spirit and a free spirit, and I thought that fit me best. And then I went into a lot of documentaries and feature stories, that kind of thing. And then finally just anchoring and then I've been writing all along. Since I'm a child, I say when my crayon was in my hand and I learned to form a letter, I started writing.
So what would be a piece of advice you could give to somebody starting out writing or just thinking about it?
Write. It's really that simple. Put your butt down in a chair, sit down, write the story of your heart. Just get it out. Don't worry about it if it's pretty. Don't worry if the words are written correct grammatically. Just get that story down and you can fix it. Then you go back and fix it. You layer it and you play with it. And then you find a credible source to help you edit it. Not a friend, not your parents, not somebody that's going to say it is just the best thing you've ever written when you know it needs work. Don't expect to write the great novel the first time out. So my advice is sit down, write it, don't worry about it, just get it out of your system and then edit it.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, do it, just do it.
All right, thank you. We're here with Addison Cain.
Hello there.
And what genre do you write?
I write dark romance. So if it has, darker elements, the more twisted characters, unredeemable anti-heroes, that's what I do.
So how long you been published?
I've been published for 2 years, but I wrote about 5 years before that, and I posted all of my books free to read online, places like Fiction Press and Literotica. That's where I got my original fan base who followed me. They're very dedicated and awesome people. Thank you if you're listening to this. My suggestion for a lot of new writers, if you haven't published yet and you want to hone your craft and work on your prose, it's a really great way to get feedback and make friends and find fans.
So what is it that inspired you to start writing?
I never was expecting to be a writer. I was living in Japan, and English books are very expensive there. So I was looking for books I could read for free online, and I stumbled on the websites I mentioned, Fiction Press mainly, and fan fiction, which is also very fun. And I was reading all these stories, and I was thinking, wow, these are just regular people who just write stories for fun in their free time. And some stories I really loved, and I thought, but if I was going to write it, I'd write it this way. And then I said, I'm just going to write my own. And I was awful in the beginning. My first work is pretty funny. I read it now on occasion just to remind myself how much I've developed my craft. But even when it was bad, it was an adventure to post. And it was really wonderful to hear feedback, both positive and negative. In fact, more probably negative than positive in the early days. But inside the negative, there was always a really good kernel of truth to what they were saying. And I would make sure that I listened, and you can't take it personally. I mean, you're writing stories, whatever, and learn from it that way. I probably got really off track with that question.
No, that's actually absolutely perfect.
Excellent.
So yeah, do you have anything else to add?
I would just say, if you're a reader and you're watching this, thank you for watching this. And if you're a writer or someone who wants to become a writer, just try it. It is the most fun job on the planet. The community itself is fantastic. I've never really met a horrible person. And I mean, there's a couple bad eggs, but there's not that many. Almost anyone you can walk up to, no matter if they're super famous or small like me, and they're going to want to give you a hug, and they're going to want to talk to you about the craft, and probably just want to go grab a cocktail and have some laughs. So please join us. We're great, I promise.
And come down for the book signing. You'll be here for the book signing.
I'll be here for the book signing, and my cute little baby will be with me, hopefully not crying the whole time. So if you would like to meet her, please come down. And bring jokes, please, because I'm going to have to sit there all day and I'll be bored.
Awesome. It was glad to meet you.
I was really, really happy to meet you too.
See you later.